welcome back to another installment of a breakdown of Nicollo Machiavelli's Arts of War. All right, so we last left off talking about, how what ages they would have taken the man in, things of this nature. And at the moment, our man Fabrizio is speaking and answering Cosmo's questions. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Out of Ianus first, and then Tiberius, thinking more of their own power than for the public usefulness, in order to rule over the Roman people more easily, begun to disarm them, and to keep the same armies continually at the frontiers of the empire. And because they did not think it sufficient to hold the Roman people and the Senate in check, they instituted an army called the Praetorian Guard, as it was known, which is kept near the walls of Rome and a fort adjacent to that city. And as they now begun freely to permit men assigned to the army to practice military matters as their profession, there soon resulted that these men became insolent and they became formidable to the Senate and damaging to the emperor. Whence there resulted that many men were killed because of their insolence, for they gave the empire and took it away from anyone they wished. And it often occurred that in one time there were many emperors created by the several armies, from which state of affairs proceeded first the division of the empire and finally its ruins. Okay, so let's back this up. Okay, so as I said, man, there's a lot of parts of this that you're going to read into and that you have to understand that our fucking forefathers really read this. They're sitting there talking about, in order to rule over the Roman people more easily, they begun to disarm them and to keep the same armies continually at the frontiers of the empire. So they disarmed the people, okay? So the people couldn't fight back and they put in the fucking guard, right? This is basically the same thing that we're doing today. Right. And what we're doing today is we're standing here and, they're trying to take away our fucking arms so that they can rule over us more easily and do what they want. While at the same time growing and expanding our fucking government agencies and giving them more power. So, and on one hand, they're standing here fucking, taking away our power and handing it to somebody else. But they don't realize, and we're seeing this right now, with Donald Trump's in a fight with the deep state. And we're basically the fucking person we elected is standing here fighting with the state itself at the moment. And the state itself can't push itself over top of the people too much. But it can, because the people are fucking, willfully ignorant about what's going on. With WikiLeaks letting us know about how much they're spying on us and all that type of shit. There's some fucking ridiculous shit going on. But this here was happening back in the fucking 1500s. And this is some crazy fucking shit. So let's continue on. All right. Now, let's even wait for it. Okay. From which state of affairs proceeded first the division of the empire and finally its ruin. Kings ought, therefore, if they want to live securely, have their infantry composed of men who, when it's necessary for him to wage war, will willingly go forth to it for love of him, and afterwards, when peace comes, more willingly return to their homes, which will always happen. If he selects men who knew how to live by a profession other than this, and thus he ought to desire, with the coming of peace and his princes, return to their governing their people, gentlemen to the cultivation of their possessions, and the infantry to their particular arts, trades, or professions. And every one of these will willingly make war in order to have peace, and will not seek to disturb the peace to have war. Cosimo. Truly, this reasoning of yours appears to me well considered. Nonetheless, it is almost contrary to what I have thought up to now. My mind is not yet purged of every doubt. For I see many lords and gentlemen who provide for themselves in times of peace through the training for war, as do your equals who obtain provisions from princes in the community. I also see almost all the men at arms remaining in the garrisons of the cities and the fortresses. So it appears to me that there's a long time of peace for everyone. Fabrizio, I do not believe that you believe this, that everyone has a place in time of peace. For other reasons can be cited for their being stationed there, and a small number of people who remain in the places mentioned by you will answer your question. What is the proportion of infantry needed to be employed in time of war to that in peace. For while fortresses in the cities are garrisoned in time of peace, they are much more garrisoned in times of war. To this should be added the soldiers kept in the field, who are a great number, but all of whom are released in time of peace. And concerning the garrisons of states, who are small number, Pope Julius, and you have shown how much you are to be feared. You have shown how much they are to be feared, do not know any profession than other than profession in war, as you have taken them out of your garrisons because of their insolence, and placed the Swiss there, who are born and raised under the laws, and are chosen by the community in an honest election. So do not say further that in peace there is a place for every man, that to the men at arms continue their enlistment in peacetime. The answer appears more difficult. Nonetheless, whoever considers everything well will easily find the answer for this thing of keeping on the men. Men at arms is a corrupt thing and not the good. The reason is this: as there are men who do not have any art, trade, or profession, 1,000 evils will arise every day in those states where they exist. And especially so if they were to be joined by a great number of companions, but as they are few and unable by themselves to constitute an army, they therefore cannot do any serious damage. Nonetheless, they have done so many times, as I said of Francesco and Sforza, his father, and Braccio of Perugia. I do not approve of this custom of keeping men at arms, both because it is corrupt and because it can cause great evils. He said, would you do it with Cosimo? Would you do it without them? Or if you keep them, how would you do so? Fabrizio, by means of an ordinance, not like those of the kings of France, because they are as dangerous and insolent as ours, but like those in the ancients who created horsemen, cavalry from their subjects, and in times of peace sent them back to their homes to live in the practice of their own profession. As I shall discuss at length before I finish this discussion, so if this part of the army can now live by such a practice, even when there is a peace, it stems from corrupt order. As to the provisions that are reserved for me and the other leaders, I say to you that this likewise is the most corrupt order. For a wise republic ought not to give them to anyone. Rather, it ought to employ its citizens as leaders in war. All right, let's pause 1 second. Okay. Now, I feel like I'm sitting here thinking about it. I feel like I missed an opportunity to tell y'all something. Okay. The Pope has what's known as the Swiss Guard. Okay, you ever seen the guys in like the crazy 13th century fucking outfits in front of the Vatican? The Swiss Guard are elected from a bunch of people from a foreign nation to come in and protect the Vatican City and protect the Pope. Just something I thought y'all might want to know about real quick if y'all don't know about fucking the Catholic Church. And the reason why they do this is because, they don't want the politics of Catholicism involved with the protecting of the fucking actual city and the fucking Pope and the cardinals and shit of this nature. It's a real smart way of doing things. And they've been doing it for like thousands of years in this manner. Where are we at? So if part of the army can now live by such a practice, even when there is peace, it stems from a corrupt order. As to the provisions that are reserved for me and other leaders, I say to you that this likewise is the most corrupt order. For a wise republic ought not to give them to anyone. Rather, it employ its citizens as leaders in war, and at times of peace desire that they return to their professions. Thus also a wise king ought not to give provisions to them, or if he does give them, the reasons ought to be either as a reward from some excellent act or in order to avail himself of such a man in peace as well in war. Because you have mentioned me, I want the example to include me. And I say, I have never practiced war as a profession, for my profession is to govern my subjects and defend them. And in order to defend them, I must love peace, but know how to make war. And my king does not reward and esteem me so much for what I know of war as because I know how to also counsel him in peace. Any king ought not therefore to want to have next to him anyone who is not thusly constituted. If he is wise and wants to govern prudently, if he has around him either too many lovers of peace or too many lovers of war, they will cause him to err. I cannot, in this first discussion of mine, according to my suggestions, say otherwise. And if this is not enough for you, you must seek one who satisfies you better. Let's pause 1 second, right? So what this guy is saying is that your government should have people who love peace and people who love war. All right. It should be an even balance. All right. And if you ever watch South Park, there was an episode about how, like we could be a warlike nation while at the same time still liking peace. You know what I mean? Like it's important to have that balance in your society. You have to be willing to go to war and have individuals around you who want war and want nothing else but war. Because that keeps everybody honest around you in other countries, right? Because it's like, holy shit, they got these fucking guys that are goddamn crazy. But you must always want these guys who want peace to balance them out. At least in your court, so that you have the ability to have somebody around you to go, hey, look, man, we don't need fucking war right now. It costs too much. We got our shit we got to do, da-da-da-da. Because, that way you have both sides. And when it's really necessary, you can get it done. But little by little, you will know these things better if the discussion on bringing any part of this ancient institution to the present order of things does not weary you. Cosimo, if we first desired to hear your discussion of these matters, truly what you have set up and now redoubles that desire. We thank you, therefore, for what we have and ask you for the rest. Fabrizio, since this is your pleasure, I want to begin to treat this matter from the beginning of being able in a way to demonstrate it more fully, so that it may be better understood. The aim of those who want to make war is to be able to combat in the field with every kind of enemy and to be able to win in an engagement. To want to do this, they must raise an army, and in raising an army, it is necessary to find men, arm them, organize them, train them in small and large battle orders, lodge them, and expose them to the enemy afterwards, either at a standstill or while marching. All of the industry of war in this field is placed in these things, which are the more necessary and honored in the waging of war. And if one does well in offering battle to an enemy, all the errors he may make in the conduct of the war are supportable. But if he lacks the organization, even though he be valiant in other particulars, he will never carry on a war to victory and honor. For as one engagement that you win cancels out every other bad action of yours, so likewise, when you lose one, all of the things you have done well before become useless. Since it is necessary, therefore, to find men, you must come to the diletto, the draft of them, as thus the ancients called it, and we call it scelta, selection. But in order to call it by a more honored name, I want to preserve the name of diletto. Those have been drawn up on regulations for war. Want men to be chosen from temperate countries, as they have spirit and are prudent, for warm countries give rise to men who are prudent but not spirited. Okay. I love this. I'm going to pause a second. I love this part of the fucking book. This is one of my favorites. As I said, Machiavelli knew better than anyone else about people. All right. And his specialty is fucking people. You want to learn about people? You want to learn about what shit really is? Because this isn't a fucking, how do I put this? This isn't a bash on anybody. It's more of a straightforward, this is what these people are like, and this is what these people are like, and this is what these people are like. This is what these people are good at. This is what these people are good at. And he listed off and goes, this is what you should do with each of these individuals. All right. This is amazing because it's the same shit that fucking it's the exact same way right now. People in warm countries don't work hard, all right? It's why you don't have many industrial nations in fucking warm countries or warm areas of the world. Even down south in America, they're way slower moving than we are up north. And this is what he's talking about with the temperate climate. People from warmer climates are different. So we're going to go through this. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the best shit ever. All right, we're going to re-go over it. Those who have been drawn up for regulations for war want men to be chosen from temperate countries as they have spirit and are prudent. For warm countries give rise to men who are prudent but not spirited, and cold countries to men who are spirited but not prudent. This regulation is drawn up well for one who is prince of all the world, and therefore permitted to draw men from those places that appear best to him. But wanting to draw up a regulation that anyone can use, one must say that every republic and every kingdom ought to take soldiers from their own country, whether it is hot, cold, or temperate. For from ancient examples, it is seen that in every country, good soldiers are made by training, because where nature is lacking, industry supplies it, which in this case is worth more than nature. And selecting them from another place cannot be called diletto, because diletto means to take those of the best of a province and to have the power to select as well those who do not want to fight as those who do want to. This stiletto, therefore, cannot be made unless the places are subject to you. For you cannot take whoever you want in the countries that are not yours, but you need to take those who want to come. Cosimo, and of those who want to come, it can even be said that they turn and leave you because of this. It can then be called a stiletto. Fabrizio, in a certain way you say what you say is, in a certain way you say what is true, but consider the defects that such a stiletto has in itself, for often it happens that it is not a stiletto. The first thing to consider is that those who are not your subjects and do not willingly want to fight are not of the best. Rather, they are the worst of a province, for they are troublesome, idle, without restraint, without religion, subject to rule of the Father, blasphemous, gamblers, and in every way badly brought up. Though they are those who want to fight, and these habits cannot be more contrary to a true and good military life. All right. Let's break this down real quick. All right. Those who are not your subjects, do not willingly want to fight, are not of the best. And do not willingly want to fight, are not of the best. They are of the worst of a province. For they are troublesome, idle, without restraint, without religion, subject to rule of the Father, blasphemous, gamblers, in every way, badly brought up. They are those who want to fight. Okay? The people who want to fight in a fucking war tend to be bad people because they're violent motherfuckers. They're brought up badly. They're violent people. All right. Your best soldiers are always motherfuckers who are just a little on the wild side, or really a whole lot on the wild side, and that's something that, is knocked out of you in training. And that's what we're going to go over here. When there are so many of such men offered you that they exceed the number you had designated, you can select them. But the material is bad. It is impossible for the letter. Wait. Okay. Blasphemy. Those who want to fight. These habits cannot be good. Yeah. Okay. You can select them, but if the material is bad, it is impossible for the letter to be good. But many times it happens there are not so many as are needed to fill the number you require, so that being forced to take them all, it results can no longer be called the making of a stiletto, but an enlisting of infantry. The armies of Italy and other places are raised today with these evils, except in Germany. Except in Germany, where no one is enlisted by command of the prince, but according to the wishes of those who want to fight. Think, therefore, what methods these ancients can now be introduced to an army of men put together by similar means. What means should be taken, therefore? Fabrizio, what I have just said. Select them from your own subjects and the authority of the prince. Cosimo, would you introduce any ancient form in those selected? Fabrizio, you know well it would be so. But if it is a principality, he should command who should be their prince or an ordinary lord, or if it was a republic, a citizen, for the time should be the captain. Otherwise, it is difficult to do the thing well. Cosimo, why? I will tell you in time. For now, I want to suffice for you that it cannot be done well in any other way. Cosimo, if you have therefore to make this ibis stiletto in your country, whence do you judge it better to draw them, from the city or from the countryside? Fabrizio, those who have written of this all agree that it is better select them from the countryside, as they are men accustomed to discomfort, brought up on hard work, accustomed to being in the sun, and avoid the shade, know how to handle the sword, dig a ditch, carry a load, and are without cunning or malice. But on this subject, my opinion would be that as soldiers are of two kinds, afoot and on horseback, that those on the foot be from the countryside, and those that are from a horseback be on the city. Pause a second. This is important too. All right. So what he's saying is that the regular grunt should come from the countryside, but the individuals on a horseback, the motherfuckers who are leaders, should be from a city, because they're accustomed to dealing with other people. They're used to motherfucking having to manipulate to get what they want. They're not used to working, but they're used to fucking having to deal with people. And that is an important part of this fucking equation right here when you're talking about building a military. Cosmo, of what age you would draw them? He said, if I had to raise an entirely new army, I would draw them from 17 to 40 years of age. If the army already exists and I had to replenish it at 17 years of age always. All right. Hang on. Pause one more second. Me and Excel just got into this fucking earlier, my goddamn bottom bitch. We were having this conversation about retards and their fucking mentality of fucking the mortality rate of older people. They said the average life expectancy was 43 years old. Bullshit. All right. If you live past the age of fucking 10, okay, you were going to live to be 65. Tend to be how the fuck it worked. Human beings always have a lifespan, like deer, like bear, like buffalo. All right. Everything has a fucking lifespan to it. Okay. Human beings' average lifespan is between 66 and 75 years old, right in that general vicinity, depending on where you're from, that type of shit. You know what I mean? How cold it is, that, you know, whatever. Right. And it has always been this case. The fucking way they measure fucking mortality and fucking this bullshit of fucking life expectancy is fucking retarded. It's complete lies, and it makes everybody think the wrong fucking way. Just so everybody knows. Cosmo. I do not understand this distinction well. Fabrizio, I will tell you, if I should have to organize an army where there is none, it would be necessary to select all those men who are capable, as long as they were of military age. In order to instruct them, I would tell them, if I should have to make a diletto in places where the army was already organized in order to supplement it, I would take those of 17 years of age, because the others haven't been taken for some time would have been selected and instructed. Cosimo. Therefore, you would not to make an ordinance similar would already exist in our country. Fabrizio. You say well. It is true that I would arm them, captain them, train them, and organize them in a way which I do not know whether or not you have organized them similarly. Cosimo. Therefore, you praise the ordinance? Fabrizio. Why would you want me to condemn it? Cosimo. Because many wise men have censored it. Fabrizio. You say something contrary when you say a wise man censored the ordinance. For he can be held a wise man and have censored them wrongly. Cosimo. The wrong conclusion that he has made will always cause us to have such opinion. Fabrizio. Watch out that the defect is not yours, but his. Oh, man. God damn it. What the hell, man? I apologize. I know we're still recording. All right, we're going to finish this up. Okay. You do a most gracious thing, but I want to tell you that you should be able to justify yourself better than that which these men are accused. These men say thusly, either that it is useless and our trusting in it will cause us to lose the state, or it is a virtue and he who governs through it can easily deprive her of it. They cite Romans, who by their own arms lost their liberty. They cite Venetians and the King of France, of whom they say that the former, in order not to obey one of the citizens, employed of the arms of others, and the king disarmed his people, so as to be able to command them more easily. But they fear the uselessness of this much more, for which uselessness they cite two principal reasons. The one, because they are inexpert, and the other for having to fight by force, because they say that they never learn anything from great men, and nothing good is ever done by force. Fabrizio. All of the reasons that you mentioned are for men who are not as far-sighted as I shall clearly show. And first, as to the uselessness, I say to you that no army is of more use than your own, nor can any army of your own be organized except in this way. And as there is no debating over this, which all the examples of ancient history does for this, I do not want to lose time over it. And because they cite inexperience and force, I say, as it is true that inexperience gives rise to little spirit, enthusiasm, and force makes for discontent, but experience and enthusiasm gains for themselves the means for arming, training, and organizing them, as you will see in the first part of this discussion. But as to force, you must understand that men are brought to the army by commandment of the prince. They have to come, whether it is entirely by force or entirely voluntary. For if it were entirely from desire, there would not be a diletto, as only a few of them would go. So also, the going entirely by force would produce bad results. Therefore, a middle way ought to be taken, where neither the entirely forced or entirely voluntary means are used, but they should come drawn by the regard that they have for the prince, where they are more afraid of his anger than the immediate punishment, and it will always happen that there will be a compulsion mixed with the willingness. All right, let's pause 1 second, right? This is how a government operates in general. All right. You do what you do because you are you're worried about the long-term effects of what's going to happen to you. Right. And breaking the law comes with that. You know what I'm saying? The immediate effects you're not concerned about. You know what I mean? You're not worried about, whatever's going to happen to you right now. You're worried about going to jail and all the bullshit that goes on with it. This is one of those type of things. Yet I do not claim that an army thus constituted cannot be defeated. For many times the Roman armies were overcome and the army of Hannibal was defeated. So it can be seen that no army can be so organized that a promise can be given that it cannot be routed. These wise men of you, therefore, ought not to measure this usefulness from having lost one time, but to believe that just as they can lose, so they too can win, and remedy the cause of the defeat. And if they should look into this, they would find that it would not have happened because of a defect in the means, but of the organization, which is not significantly perfect. Or sufficiently perfect, I apologize. And as I've said, they ought to provide for you by not censoring the organization, but by correcting it. As to how this ought to be done, you will come to know little by little. As to being apprehensive that such organization will not deprive you of the state by one who makes himself a leader, I reply that the arms carried by his citizens or subjects given to them by laws and ordinances never do him harm, but rather of some usefulness, and preserve the city uncorrupted for a longer time by means of these arms than without. Rome remained free for 400 years while armed, Sparta 800. Many other cities have been disarmed and have been free less than 40 years. For cities have need of arms, and if they do not have arms of their own, they hire them from foreigners, and the arms of foreigners... Okay, my phone's dying, so we're going to wrap this up here in a minute. The arms of foreigners are more readily to do harm to the public than their own. They are easy to corrupt, and a citizen who becomes powerful can more readily avail himself, who can also manage the people more readily as he has to oppress men who are disarmed. In addition to this, a city ought to fear two enemies more than one. One which he avails itself of foreigners immediately has to fear not only its citizens, but the foreigner that it enlists. And remembering what I told you a short while ago, Francesco Forza, that fear ought to exist, which employs its own arms, has not another fear except of its own citizens. But of all the reasons which can be given, I want this one to serve me, that no one ever established any republic or kingdom who did not think it should be defended by those who live there with arms. And if the Venetians had been as wise as in their own institutions, they would have created a new world kingdom. But who so much more merit censure because they had been the first who were armed by their founders and were not having dominion on land. They armed themselves on the sea and were waged war with virtue, and with arms they had enlarged their country. But when the time came that they had to wage war on the land to defend Venice, where they ought to have sent their own citizens to fight, they enlisted as their captain a foreigner, Marquis of Mantua, and this was the sinister course which prevented them from rising to the skies and expanding. And they did this in the belief that they knew how to wage war at sea. They should not trust themselves in waging war on land, which was an unwise belief, because a sea captain who was accustomed to combat with winds, water, and men could more easily become a captain on land, where the combat is with men only than on land. A captain become a sea one. And my Romans, knowing how to combat on land and not on the sea, when the war broke out with the Carthaginians, who were powerful on sea but did not enlist Greeks or Spaniards experienced at sea, but were imposed that change by citizens they sent to fight on land, and they won. If they did this in order that one of their citizens should not become tyrant, it was a fear that was given little consideration. For in addition to the other reasons mentioned a short while ago concerning a proposal, if a citizen skilled and in use of arms at sea had never been made a tyrant in a city situated in the sea, so much less would have been able to do this if he were skilled in the use of arms on land. And because of this, they ought to have seen that the arms in the hands of their own citizens could not create tyrants, but the evil institutions of government are those which cause a city to be tyrannized. And because they ought to have seen that the arms in the hands of their own citizens And because of this, they ought to have seen that arms in the hands of their own citizens could not create tyrants, but the evil institutions of a government are those which cause a city to be tyrannized. I don't know if I could put it any better than that. And we're going to end on that fucking note right the fuck there. Man, look here, man. This is Pinoy News. Like, share, and subscribe, my brothers. Y'all know the deal. Later.